7876. Keep that number handy. You're going to need it to speak to Mark from Anaheim. Mark from Anaheim, welcome back to WOL Radio.
Hotep.
Hotep. Habarigani.
How you doing, Mr. Nelson?
I'm doing good. I don't know how much of that story that you heard with Reverend Pinckney, but it's a fascinating story.
I'm familiar with Reverend Pinckney.
Oh, you're familiar with it? Okay, yeah.
And I'm familiar with Benton Harbor.
Wow.
And I'll just say that he's legitimate, and he's real, and he's been on the front lines for some time. For those people who may not have gotten the phone number, once again, the phone number is area code 269-925-0001. And it's sad because, as you said earlier, we're hitting the winter months, and, it gets cold in that region, especially up in Michigan. But, yeah, he's legitimate, and it's sad because there were more Reverend Pinckneys out there. We'd have less of the contamination in areas like Flint, Michigan. But there's a whole lot of drama going on there with the corporate fascists and how they're not screwing over just the blacks, but screwing over working class, middle income, and lower income people in the community.
Yeah, because his fight was with Whirlpool. I mean, I know that
companies
like that control these small towns.
I wrote about this on several of my Facebook sites 3 years ago, and I also talked about, because I had warned about Flint. Michigan has a long history of this even goes back before World War II, because folks, Henry Ford, Dearborn, Michigan, and like I told your listeners back in the 90s, he's not Henry Ford, he was Heinrich Ford, and he was personally awarded a prestigious award from Hitler that no other U.S. citizen ever got. So there's been a long history in Michigan of certain individuals who have no tolerance or love, actually, for people of color or Native Americans. And when the 60s came around and Johnson came in with the idea of this new America, that they were going to finally allow blacks to have an equal chance within the political realm, and more black political leaders started becoming elected in predominantly black cities, those corporate fascists pulled their monies out of those areas to make sure that those areas wouldn't survive. And Whirlpool is a major player, and they have a lot of political clout in that region, and they've done some things there that are unbelievable.
Wow. Mark from Anaheim. Well,
so how you doing? But Mr. Nelson, seriously, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it through, because it's been a rough few weeks.
We're close to the end of 2017. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who were listening to this show in January who are no longer with us. It's been a tough year, I've had friends and close friends, even a mentor like Dick Gregory, but I've had people from around the world who've been affected by hurricanes and floods and mass shootings. It's been a very, 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 very interesting year. So I just want the listeners out there to know, as Mr. Nelson just stated, we will make it. I'm somebody who, as a very young child, I grew up in segregated Johns Island, South Carolina. I knew what it was like to be inside by dark, because we were always concerned about the Klan or the John Birch Society or White Citizens Councils killing any black they saw outside after dark. And I'm still here. And a lot of other folks are still here. And I think one of the most unfortunate things is we have such a young population today. It's their movement. First and foremost, I say it's your movement. However, you need to learn to take the advantage of the knowledge, the experience, and the history that some of us before you have already gone through, so you don't make the same mistakes we did. And sadly, Mr. Nelson, what I see is young folks today are getting most of their information off the internet, where they're sitting down with the folks who are learned, who've been there, who've seen and done this before, and how we survived. And if we don't do a better job of connecting that bridge between the youth and those of us who are older, with the technology today and the plans that certain people have in power, I just don't see these new younger black movements surviving. Not the direction they're going right now.
Yeah, but don't you think it's sort of something that's ingrained in youth? They want to do their thing. They don't necessarily want to listen to adults.
Well, I can only say I was a youth at one time, and when I was a youth, I was told to shut up and listen to old folks. Much of the information I share with you on this show that nobody's heard about. Why? regardless of what their ethnicity was. I learned it from old folks who told me all the stuff that's happening now was coming. So if I was one of these individuals who was ingrained with not listening to old folks, I wouldn't be able to come on this show and provide information that most folks have never heard. The great thing today is we have the technology where, and as I tell the listeners on every show I've ever appeared on, I don't want them to believe anything I share with them. But I challenge them to go out and do their own research, make up their own minds, and come back on this show and say, I've ever provided you with misinformation, disinformation, or lies. So if we, as older folks, don't find a way to bridge that gap with the younger folks, they're going to fail. And unfortunately, unlike when we were coming up and had to go through these struggles, they don't have as much time as we did. Everything today is rapid, instantaneous. News spreads quickly. Disinformation spreads quickly. Lies spread quickly. And once those disinformation and lies are put out there, it's very difficult to do damage control to undo those lies and disinformation. So that's going to be, I think that should be the New Year's resolution for all of us, to figure out a way, as the Reverend said earlier, to stop disliking and start loving each other a little bit more.
Yeah. That's part of the stuff that Neely Fuller Jr. was speaking about Wednesday. It's part of the system, the matrix, system of white supremacy.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that term, matrix, because I truly believe most of the stuff we're doing, we've done this before. And once man gets to the point where they destroy this planet, they talk about how there was an ice age. Well, if we have an all-out nuclear war, Mr. Nelson, what do you think is going to be created after that nuclear war? There'll be a dust cloud so great that the sun can't reach through, and we're going to have an ice age. I think we've done this before, and like idiot man, we're doing it again. But I want to start the show today by saying, as always, I thank you and Kathy Hughes for even allowing me this format.
Right. Hang on a second, Mark. We got to take our first look at the traffic with you. I got a traffic update for our listeners in the DMV area. I'll let you start the show after the traffic. Folks, you too can speak to Mark from Anaheim. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls next, right here on FM 95.9 and also AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. Anyways, folks, our guest is Mark from Anaheim. As most of you know, Mark is his real name. It's not really from Anaheim, but that's a whole different story. But Mark, we already got people lined up. They've been waiting for you, so I'm going to let you start your introduction. Is Mark there?
As always, I thank Kathy Hughes and I thank you, Mr. Nelson, for even providing me with a format to come on to share information. Because as the corporate fascists continue their takeover of more and more television stations and radio stations, creating this all-out monopoly, we're running out of access to even have a different format from what's not far right-wing radio. So I humbly thank you all for even allowing me to come on the show. Today I'd like to dedicate the show to all women out there. Listen to me, women. The future depends on you. I've always been an avid supporter of women. I will always remain an avid supporter of women. And I dedicate this show today to the memory of, unfortunately, a woman who passed away recently. And her name is Mamie Johnson. Nickname was Peanut. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with that name, Mamie Johnson, I'm from South Carolina. Mamie Johnson was from Ridgeway, South Carolina. And she was one of 3 women to play in the Negro League Baseball. Now, when she was 17 years old, she couldn't play on the teams that were available for whites, of course, so none of the white professional baseball teams would allow her to play. She ended up at the age of 17 joining the Indianapolis Clowns. Now, for those who may not know who the Indianapolis Clowns are, that was a team that Hank Aaron played with before he became famous with the Atlanta Braves, breaking Babe Ruth's record. So in memory of Mamie Johnson, Peanut, may you rest in peace, and thank you for once again being one of those people out there in the forefront who opened the door for so many of us. And for those who want to get more information about Mamie Johnson, yes, sir?
Yeah, I was going to say that I had a chance to meet her, got a signed baseball.
I'm not surprised. Before you go any further, listeners, you have to understand something. Carl Nelson, sometimes it makes me angry because Carl Nelson is one of these individuals who has seen and done so much. Now, I'm not saying he should go out there and toot his horn, but I'm just saying folks have no idea who Carl Nelson really is, the guy who was the first one to interview Mandela when he was freed from prison. And now he's telling me something that he's never shared with me before, that he not only met Mamie Johnson, but had an autographed baseball. Please, sir, continue.
And a baseball card. It's a fascinating lady. And by the way, her going home service is going to be in the DMV area. Let me give you that information. It's going to be in Capitol Heights, Way of the Cross Church. That's 6400 Walker Mill Road, and that is going to be Saturday at 9 o'clock. So those of you who want to pay your respects to Peanut, fascinatingly, Mark, when you talked about speaking to elders. These are the people that I like to talk to. People like Peanut. And there's another guy who played for the Negro Leagues. He was a catcher. I can see his face now. By the time we got him on the front page, he had lost his eyesight because of diabetes. And he would tell us, stories about barnstorming, about groupies, what it was like back then when they played in these different cities and they couldn't stay in hotels. They had to stay in homes of black folks on the road. Interesting stories. So, again, I concur with you. If you've got an older person in your family, sit down and just have a conversation with them.
Yeah, and there was a book written about her by an author named was Michelle Y. Green, and the title of the book is called A Strong Right Arm. Because, folks, you have to understand what I'm telling you. This woman was a phenomenal pitcher, but she was pitching against men and striking them out. Remember, there were only 3 women in the Negro League, so that means everybody else were men, and she was whipping these boys behind. After she left baseball, she spent 30 years in the nursing industry, and, of course, I run a Facebook site that I dedicate to women who served in the armed forces, firefighters, law enforcement, and also nurses, because nurses are the ones who saved their lives. So rest in peace, Peanut.
All right. Well, let's start chopping it up. You mentioned, you said if there's another war, a nuclear war.
If. You mean when?
How close are we to it? And by the way, before you answer that, Sammy Haynes was brother Jamal. Jamal was our producer in L.A. Just reminded me there was Sammy Hayes. I was searching for his name in the Negro Leagues. He's a catcher for the Kansas City.
That's correct. I remember you bringing him on.
Yeah.
How close are we? Well, I'm only 60 years old. Now, one of my former jobs in the U.S. Marine Corps was a nuclear biological chemical warfare instructor and inspector. And I can tell you, without being hyperbolic, we are the closest today to a world war and a potential nuclear war than any other time in my lifetime, other than a couple times when we had near misses because of a computer glitch, which happened in the early 80s, where there was I guess I can show you, it's not classified anymore. There was a computer in the U.S. that needed to be replaced, a part that only cost a nickel. But, we're always tight budgets, and this part hadn't been replaced, and this falsely alerted NORAD that the Russians, well, back then it was the Soviet Union, had launched nuclear weapons. And fortunately, that error was corrected in time, that we did not retaliate in kind, because we have this thing called MAD. I love that term, MAD, mutually assured destruction. And you only have like a 15-minute window to decide whether the White House is going to go ahead and do the launch code. So that happened in the 80s. Also, for a lot of folks who don't know this, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was a U-2 that strayed off course. Instead of going into Alaska, and from Alaska to Iceland, it ended up getting into Russian airspace and came close to being shot down. And had that been shot down, the U.S. has scrambled some, I believe they were Air National Guard fighters, and one of those, actually both of those fighters had nuclear-tipped missiles on them. But during that same time, believe it or not, when the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on, in fact, it was the same day, there was a Russian sub that had come under attack from a U.S. naval vessel during the Cuban blockade. And this U.S. naval vessel was dropping depth charges, but they weren't dropping the kind of depth charges that would actually destroy the sub. It was more like to bring it to the surface. Well, this Russian sub-commander thought World War III had started, and the one nuclear missile he had on his submarine, he ordered that to be put into the launch. So we've come close to very close to nuclear war without the average U.S. citizen not knowing this. Now, there was a more recent one. There's a lot of it I still can't talk about, but in the early 80s, there was an operation going on with NATO forces, and the Soviet Union thought that that was going to lead to a nuclear war, and they had scrambled. Because unlike the U.S., nuclear missiles could be launched by the individual commanders. It doesn't necessarily have to go to the president, at least during that time. So we've had some near misses, but I'm saying, forget the near misses. I'm saying, seriously, today, we're probably closer to a nuclear war than ever before in my lifetime.
Well, let me ask you real quickly. If it happens, how much warning are we going to get?
Like I told you, you got 15 minutes. Hey, that's what you got is 15 minutes to decide whether or not you're going to retaliate in kind or not retaliate at all.
Because how much time the average citizen is going to, 50 minutes?
You don't have any time. Besides that, Mr. Nelson, let me ask you. You and I are old enough to remember duck and cover.
Yeah.
And, of course, since I was a nuclear, biological, chemical warfare instructor and inspector, I have some of those old videotapes. I have books that nobody else around that I think listening to this show would have ever read. I have things here at home that even tells me how to go out and measure radiation. And I'm just telling you, seriously. Where's the civil defense system today? When's the last time you heard an early warning signal being blown in your residential area?
I've never heard one.
Exactly. So you have no warning. And folks, seriously, if you want an idea, the closest I've ever seen in a Hollywood movie to what it would look like, go back and look at the first Terminator movie. In the first 5 minutes of the Terminator movie, they show you what it actually looks like. Unannounced, instantaneous destruction. Oh, yeah.
But 45 gets he gets that 15-minute warning, so he would know. So he could take care of his folks.
And do you no, you can't take care of his folks. See, that's the problem with nuclear weapons. You can't take care of your folks. Now, I can tell you this too. This is not classified anymore. When I used to come on your show back in the 90s, we had an underground area in West Virginia to extricate key political leaders from the Washington, D.C. area. Of course, that became obsolete, and we've got another one today where I'm not going to talk about, but they're not going to get to those locations in time. The best you can do is hopefully put the president and key officials on Air Force One, which is a hardened aircraft, and fly them to an area, but you're wasting your time. 15 minutes is not a lot of time to make a decision, and there is no such thing as acceptable losses, because if you don't have instantaneous destruction, the fallout is just unbelievable. Now, there are some scientists out there worldwide who have this nuclear clock. And Mr. Nelson, the time, oh, by the way, when I say nuclear clock, they say on that clock, as if it was close to 12 o'clock, how close we are to a nuclear weapon. Their clock is closer than any other time in my lifetime. Even the scientists around the world are now concerned with certain political leaders we have in power around the world. We are closer today to a nuclear war than ever before in my lifetime.
All right, hold that thought right there. We've got to
take
a break. We got a bunch of folks who want to talk to you as well. 800-450-7876 gets you on to speak to Mark from Anaheim. We'll take your calls next as the big show rolls on from FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim. The number to call to speak to Mark is 800-450-7876. I got several tweets. No, just me. 3 tweets, but that represents quite a bit. They want me to ask you, what advice do you have for Omarosa? She got fired or she quit, and she's threatening to do a tell-all book about the Trumps. So the 3 people, as soon as I said you coming on, they said, make sure you ask him what advice, what's going to happen to Omarosa. So, Mark, what advice do you have for her? What do you think is going to happen?
She should get on her knees and pray to God and beg for forgiveness, then get on her knees and pray to all black folks for selling us out. I couldn't care less about her. She was a house tool for the same folks who've destroyed this country. And she was living large. In fact, her nickname at the White House was Imelda Marcos, because she still, from what I hear, she still has shoes over there that she didn't get before she was kicked out the White House. So I'm sorry, you're not going to get too much sympathy from me on Omarosa. All of a sudden now she's black. Give me a break. She's just like so many other blacks. When I went to college, and You know, Mr. Nelson, uh, I'll never forget. I was a sophomore in college, and I was walking down the street in Charleston, South Carolina, and I saw this old white woman, and I recognized her because my grandmother used to work in the home of many well-to-do whites in Charleston. So I walk up to her and I go, "Hi, Miss Susie," because we call everybody Miss and Mister back there. Of course, they call us all on first name basis. So here, my grandmother was in her 90s, and they call her Sally. That was her nickname. Her name was Ella Brown. But anyway, she looked at me. She goes, "You know me?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." "Well, how do you know me?" I go, "My grandmother used to work for you." And she's like, "Well, who's your grandmother?" I go, "Her name's Ella Brown, but you used to call her Sally." "Oh, you Sally's son? You Sally's boy?" "Yes, ma'am. That was my grandmother." Because, when I was 5 years old. Which, by the way, folks, this is how I learned a lot. While my grandmother was working in the home for these wealthy white folks, I'm just a human sponge, keeping my mouth shut and listening to old white folks talk. Anyway, she said, "So what are you doing now?" And I said to her, "Oh, I'm at the College of Charleston." You should have seen the look on her face. All of a sudden, this smile that she had went down to a frown, and she walked off and didn't say another word. Because she was not happy to know that this Negro, since I'm not going to use the N-word today, this Negro was now in college. Because that's not where we're supposed to be. Now, fast forward, I tell you, in 1996, I had a College of Charleston reunion out here in L.A. at the LAPD Academy, and this white woman told me right to my face. By the way, this is a white woman who went to high school in Charleston with Barbara Bush and some other folks. "We never intended for so many of you Negroes to become middle class, and we're taking our country back." Now, that was in 96. Here we are in 2017, and they have taken the country back. So what I'm just saying to you, Mr. Nelson, I know with the folks with the tweets and all out there, when I went to college, we were told to go to college so we can come back to the black community and make it a better place. Obviously, Amoroso and these other black folks, they believed in the 80s what white folks were being taught. Go to college to make more money. She made her money. She sold her soul to the devil, and I have no sympathy for her. Let's move on.
Okay. We saw that 45 has been nominating some judges. Tell us about that, because it
Oh,
seems
my
like
God.
you're distracted.
Well,
Go ahead.
sadly, generally speaking, Democrat, and by the way, folks, I have no political party affiliation, and even though I was a member of many globalist organizations, I have not been a member of any globalist organization since the 90s when I saw what was really going on in this country. Democrats and so-called progressives spend too much time focusing on national elections. That's why they don't usually do well in midterm elections. But more importantly, Republicans, they focus on the local elections. They elect school board members, city council members, mayors, local, state, municipal, and federal judges. And later on, those are the people who are going to be selected to move up. So, of course, with Barack Hussein Obama in the White House, the Republicans did everything to block all of his nominees on the appellate court. But folks, you have to understand how important this is. It's hard to gauge, but something like 34% of all major court decisions are made by the Supreme Court. And I think if the statistics are correct, it's actually lower than that. It may be even somewhere between 18 to 22%. The rest of them are decided in the lower federal courts by appellate court judges before it ever gets to the Supreme Court. Because if it's decided at that level, most times it's never going to be heard by the Supreme Court. So this is very important. The Republicans have basically created a majority in legislations, governor's office now in the so-called red states, but more importantly, by blocking Barack Hussein Obama from appointing his appellate judges, while we're being distracted with Trump's tweets, Trump already, in less than 12 months, has appointed more people to the federal bench than most presidents do in their 4-year term. And these folks are hardcore, right-wing, John Birch Society, Ayn Rand, Eichowitz, don't care nothing about Negroes, don't care nothing about women, and don't care nothing about the federal government. And I'm saying that with double negatives on purpose.
Next question. Are these lifetime appointments?
Lifetime appointment. And I'm not going to get into, the so-called conspiracy theories. I'll just say I find it very interesting that Scalia died on a ranch that was owned by a member of the John Birch Society who was part of Iran-Contra. Because these folks who were under Reagan and the John Birch Society who were all involved in Iran-Contra, they're back. bigger, stronger, wealthier, and more powerful than ever before. And I truly believe Scalia was not going to go along with some major decision that was coming up in the Supreme Court. And just like in the movie Pelican Brief, he had to be removed. And they did everything to stop Obama from appointing his person. And now Trump is making his appointments on the bench. In fact, it's a joke going on within the progressives, but it's not a joke. They're praying for the folks who were not appointed by right-wing Republicans to live as long as possible on the bench. Because once they are gone, theoretically speaking, Trump could end up appointing where we have 6 people on the bench that were appointed to join House Negro Clarence Thomas, who's also an Ayn Rand acolyte and requires his entire staff to read Ayn Rand. And they hate the federal government, and they're destroying the federal government. And everything that protects blacks, women, browns, Native Americans in this country is the federal government.
Paul Ryan, same thing?
Paul Ryan brags that had it not been for Ayn Rand, he would have never gotten politics. He requires his entire staff to read Ayn Rand.
It says he's setting his sights on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security after this term.
They all are. They all are. They hate the federal government. The only thing they hated more in the federal government was that Negro in the White House. And now they're going to go out of their way to destroy what they consider anything that might be his legacy. Now, Barack Obama tried for years to work on the infrastructure of this country. And the Republicans stopped him. Now that they've got rid of him, Trump's talking about infrastructure. People are like, wow, somebody's going to do something for us. That was Obama's plan. That's how they operate. Except the difference is, it's not going to be Obama would have done it more similar to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, where he would have put people back to work with government jobs. It's going to be privatized. Now, folks, listen to what I'm telling you here. And I know what I'm saying to you today could get me into a lot of trouble, but I don't care. Iran-Contra is alive and well. And I knew players in Iran-Contra. Ollie North, I can't stand him. And I'm one of the guys who helped put up money to save his butt with the Legal Defense Fund, not because I had any respect for Ollie North. In fact, Mr. Nelson, I began doing radio shows with you because there were several other high-ranking armed forces officers as myself who decided we were not going to let Ollie North and Newt Gingrich and them take over the country during the Clinton years. Now, David Hackworth, most decorated Vietnam War veteran, came back from his self-exile in Australia, and he started doing radio shows. And I'm like, well, if Hackworth's going to do it, I'm going to do it too. So I started coming on your show back in '92, telling folks what was really going on and what these folks like Newt Gingrich and the John Birch Society had planned. And we stopped Ollie North from getting a job as a U.S. Senator out of Virginia. These folks are back. Now, the reason I'm saying this to you is because during Iran-Contra, the only reason the Reagan administration was on trial for criminal activity is because money appropriated by Congress had been used for much of what was considered illegal. What message did that send, Mr. Nelson? The next time around, don't use federal money. Now they've got the Mercers, they've got the Koch brothers, they've got all these billionaires, far right-wing John Birch Society billionaires. And what I'm telling you, Mr. Nelson, I wish I was making this up. If Donald Trump starts a war tomorrow with Eric Prince and Ollie North and their private army, and that war is funded completely with private donations, there's not a damn thing the U.S. Congress could do about it. And I challenge anybody listening to what I just said to come on this show and say I'm lying to you. I also challenge that you have heard this from anybody else on media, whether print, television, or radio. And that's where we are now. They're privatizing everything because under privatization, they don't have to follow federal law.
Now, does this dovetail with these tax cuts that we saw and the quote-unquote, the economy supposedly booming?
I just mentioned Ollie North and Eric Prince. Eric Prince's sister is Betsy DeVos. Betsy DeVos is the Secretary of Education. She's going to privatize the public school systems. But Betsy DeVos and her family stands to make billions of dollars off this tax bill because Betsy DeVos' family controls the money involving college student loans. And you're not hearing anybody talk about that either. Everything Trump is doing right now is to benefit the wealthy people who helped to put him in office and nobody else. They're taking it all.
Wow. Rex Tillerson, how long does he have? Hang on a sec, Mark. We got to take another look at the traffic. I'll let you respond to Rex Tillerson. We got a bunch of folks want to speak to you. I'll let them speak to you as well. You out there, if you can get in, reach us at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls after this traffic and weather update right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. And thank you for rolling with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim. Hey, and do us a favor here. Call up a couple of your friends. If they're in the DMV, tell them to check in with us on the FM side. We're at 95.9. On the AM side, 1450. Or if they're, anywhere around the country, around the world, they can check us out at WOLDCnews.com or 1450 WOL in the TuneIn app. And you can listen to us all around the world, anywhere you want to go, because I'm guarantee you're going to hear some stuff you never heard before. Before we get back to Mark, though, let me tell you this. Power talker, Egyptologist Tony Browder is going to be here. Astrologist, numerologist, metaphysician, Minister Amlak. He's going to read the energy charts for the country for 2018. He's also going to do 45's energy chart. He's going to do yours as well. So keep it locked right here again on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL. Before I take the calls for you, Mark, Rex Tillerson.
I'm sorry, I was laughing. But I have a question for you before Rex Tillerson. I was waiting for you to ask me whose ranch was Scalia on down in Texas.
All right. Whose ranch was he on?
So for you folks out there too young to remember, just look up the name John Poindexter. Iran-Contra boy, John Poindexter. Whose ranch? And by the way, that was a Bohemian Grove ranch in Texas. And I challenge you to come back and say I lied to you. What do you want to know about Tillerson, sir?
He's been at odds with 45. He's been taking the opposite side. It seems like it's like somebody's trying to get fired, and he's still got the job. So I'm just wondering, when is the 45 getting tied and show him the door? Is it because he's had a tremendous turnover already? Is he waiting till next year, before or after the State of the Union? When do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I've already lost count. I said back in January on this show, right after, people were getting ready for the inauguration. It hadn't even happened yet. And what I stated was, Donald Trump and Mike Pence haven't even sworn in yet. But just based on the announced appointments to their cabinet, this is already the most corrupt administration in my lifetime. And prior to their administration, the most corrupt was the John Birch Society Ronald Reagan administration. So for all you folks out there who, Reagan was the greatest president, go back and look how many people in his first term were not around in the second term. How many people got indicted, got fired, resigned in lieu of. And it's sad because, even with Iran-Contra, a lot of Democrats came out and stated that Reagan should have been impeached and a lot of people should have gone to prison, but because Reagan was working out a deal with the Cold War and Gorbachev, that far exceeded what was going on here. And so they gave Reagan and a whole lot of guys a pass. Well, the problem is Reagan may be dead, but these guys he gave a pass to, they're still around. They didn't learn anything because they didn't go to prison. And they're angry because they tried to take over the country back in the 80s. There's a man, a very great historian, his name was Thomas Draper. And Draper said, if you want an idea of how democracy is going to be destroyed in this country, you saw it during the Iran-Contra hearings. The only difference was back then they were taking federal money. They don't plan on taking federal money when they destroy the country this time. And they plan on destroying the country. So as far as Tillerson, I don't really see Tillerson or Mueller going anywhere. I think that's fodder to keep distracting and giving the so-called left and progressives a reason to be angry. But I'm not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, I think Mueller and Tillerson will be around for a while.
All right. Let's take some calls for you. Your friend Dr. Donald Evans from L.A., I think he's down in Mississippi now, wants to speak to you. Dr. Evans, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
I'm listening to everything that Brother Mark is saying. And as a military man myself, a man who's 90 years old, I've lived through all of it. Everything that he's saying. And I had my eyes open, and I had a lot of questions that I couldn't even ask at the time when I was growing up. But there's nothing to stop us from reading and studying and understanding the plight that we're in, and to stop doing our stuff to ourselves and at least come together. We can't even educate our children. But I have got a plan now that I'm putting out there. And Brother Mark, I certainly hope that if you're in a position to ever give me support, I'm talking about homeschooling the families. Around the dinner table in the United States of America, every black family need to be studied at your table when you have your head bowed and telling our God that we thank you for creating us. Then we need to get up from that and start talking about economics and how we're going to educate our children. We don't have a system. That system is around your dinner table. Nobody can tell you what to do in your house. But we do know that we have the books, we have the educators, we have men like Mark who are knowledgeable. But what good is that knowledge to us if it can't get to the masses of our people so they can understand it? I'm down here in Mississippi.
Yeah, Dr. Evans, let me give him a chance to respond, because we got a lot of people holding and have been home for a while. We were home before Mark even got here.
Mr. Nelson.
So, yeah, go ahead, Mark.
You said this gentleman is 90 years old?
Yeah, you know him, Dr. Evans, yeah.
Let him talk, sir.
All right. Dr. Evans, Mark just let you finish. Go ahead.
Yes, and I really thank you, Brother Mark, because I want each one to know Brother Mark is a military man like I am. I grew up in the military. That's why I reached my maturity when they drafted me in the Second World War. We have a lot to offer our people. I'm talking about those of us who have served that flag. We've done everything that the flag wanted us to do, and we came back home, and we act like units when it comes to helping our families. If our men are not strong, our families are not strong. If our families are not strong, our people are not strong. And I know we are strong people. I will go to my grave knowing that we are strong people. The only thing we have to do is we have to be better led by our men. And if our men that have known stuff and act too scared to even speak up for fear, they're going to offend some white man. It isn't the white man that you need to fear now. It's the slave masters in your head. Those are the ones that's holding us back. And that's the title of my next book, Brother Mark, is Slave Masters in Our Minds. We have work to do. You heard what Reverend Pickner said when he was on. That man is 100% correct. And for those ministers like Reverend Pickner across this country that will go with us and help us to bring our families together, I want you to speak up. Reverend Pickner was saying that we may have to walk over some of them. I'm not interested in walking over or having even a fight with them. But their congregations is made up of families. That's who is in the church. Grandparenthood is a synonymous term with longevity. God keep you living to be a grandparent. You know some stuff that the rest of the family don't know. How are you going to get that information to? It's around the dinner table. And I'm writing a curriculum now. Select every book that you need to have in your house. We have to change our way. We can't go into this next year and not having agreed on some plan. And I've got a email going, and I will get you a copy of it, Brother Carr, going to Catherine Hughes now. I'm asking her to do everything she can to expose the fact that we are out here. And there's two other people that I want her to know. It's a sister called Ethel Kane Russell, and it's a brother called Ken Peterson. The three of us need to be on a panel, if there is possible to get on a panel, so our national people can see us and hear what we have to say. Because we do have a plan, and believe me, it is powerful. I wouldn't lie to you. I would gain nothing by lying to my people. And before I would do that, I'd rather go on to my grave. But I'm still standing. I go where I want to go, and I speak the way I want to speak. And Brother Carr had known me when I was there in Los Angeles. I knew a Brother Mark when I was there in Los Angeles. I moved from Los Angeles to Texas because of my oldest granddaughter, and anywhere she needed me, I went. She had 6 children by 6 different dudes. 3 of them was in the Marine. And I said, how in the hell could a Marine have such weak-kneed men that would father children and walk away from your blood? That's not manhood. But that is the way the system has conditioned too many of us. And Brother Carl has often given me the opportunity to speak, and I didn't know this until Brother Mark just spoke a few moments ago when he was saying, thanks to Sister Kathy Hughes. That's the reason why I'm trying to reach out to her to help us to get known nationally. Because the plan that we have will hire many of us, but we have to be trained people. You have to be trained. We can't build a new infrastructure and then put it in the hands of those who are not trained because you're building on failure. And we refuse to do that. I'm too intelligent to even be a party of that. So, Brother Mark, I really admire you, man. It does my heart good to know that when time comes for me to go, and I soldiered with Brother Greg, shoulder to shoulder. I was down there in Riverside at that Taisha Miller situation. Brother Gregory, and I was there for you in Texas about that bird situation where the brother was dragged behind that truck. I have been on the battlefield for a long time, but I have been silent. I have to make a move now that I want to be known nationally so people will understand that there is a way for those of us who will come together. Not worry about the majority. If we are indeed 40 million, we've got no business begging nobody for nothing. And we should be educating our children. The Jews do it, the Mormons do it, and the Catholics do it. At the foundation that they're doing it on, our ancestors built that strong foundation, and we benefited from it the least. But it's because of our behavior. And we have to change that. And the Jesus that I see in my mind is not blonde-headed, blue-eyed. I don't reject them for having the Jesus they wanted. But they did not have the right to impose that Jesus upon me and my people. I said and I mean it. If you are a Christian and you don't have the guts to speak for the Jesus that was in your life, in your ancestral chain, you ain't fit to be a preacher. I thank you, Brother Carl, because I'm getting too emotional because I had one of my spiritual fathers that was murdered in New Orleans, 23 years old, with 2 little beautiful children. A 15-year-old and a 17-year-old was paid to put a hit on that family. Why were they available to be paid, walking the street? Because we are failing them. The men, black men are failing them. We can create the program ourselves. We don't have to wait for nobody. How in the world can you say that your ancestors were kings and queens and you act like wimps? We can do this.
Dr. Evans, we certainly can. And we're going to have you come back later on this next year, actually, next month, probably, and we'll get into it deeper because we want to talk about the black family. That's what you're all about, keeping that black family intact. I thank you for your call. Dr. Evans' group, he believes that the fundamental problem with our community is that the black family is fragmented, and that's what his group is designated to do. We have those drummers warming up, so we got to take a quick break here, folks, and we come back with Mark from Anaheim. We'll take your phone calls for him right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Views and opinions. And now back to the Carl Nelson Show on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio.
And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim. And again, the number to call to speak to him is 800-450-7876. Mark, you ready for some calls?
Absolutely, sir. I know it's going to be a tough act to follow after the doctor.
All right. Line 3, Ron's calling in. He's from West Palm Beach in Florida. Ron, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Hey, thanks a lot. I enjoyed talking to you, Mark and Carl. You guys do an excellent job. Hey, Mark, I figured out what we have in common.
We're colored?
We both like we both like we both like Inca Colas.
That's hilarious. So, Mr. Nelson, for your callers out there, one of your listeners asked to meet with me. And as you know, I don't meet anybody. I've only done that 4 times in the last 25 years. But I met with this brother and took him up to Gardena to a Peruvian restaurant and explained to him that most folks don't even know Japan still runs most of Peru. And when I went to this restaurant, they were offering us the regular drink that everybody else gets. And I'm like, no, bring us an Inca Cola. And so the guy with me was like, what are you talking about? I go, see, if you don't know, you don't know. But everybody in this restaurant knows who I am, and they know that I know about Peru. So when I asked for an Inca Cola, they brought me out some cans of Inca Cola, and while all the other customers were like, where the hell did they get that from? And Inca Cola, by the way, is run in this country by Coca-Cola. But during that experience, the brother who joined me, he videotaped that, so I guess that's been going all over the internet. So, Mr. Nelson, what the listener here, what Ron is alluding to, evidently he's seen that videotape on the internet. I can't access YouTube because I refuse to give it my dial-up, but I've been told that a lot of folks have heard about me and the Inca Cola in Gardena, California.
Yeah,
check that out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what you were saying before, how young people like myself, who's 31 years old, unfortunately, I only get my news sources from the YouTube, and that's sad because I don't trust any of the news network.
Well, it's not sad, brother, but I'll tell you what is sad. Because of this recent decision on net neutrality, much of the news that was available on YouTube will no longer be available, and that's sad.
Yeah, I know that also.
Because what I will say is, regardless of how I feel about YouTube, every show that I've appeared on with Mr. Nelson, listeners who hear this show have taken the time to make podcasts and make those available on YouTube. So if it had not been for YouTube, a lot of people would not even know about the information I've been sharing on Mr. Nelson's show. And what I will say, this is the sad statement, brother. I came on in January and told folks that I wasn't going to do any more radio shows. And do you know from January until now, I've had nearly 2,000 people find me on Facebook because they heard about that on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I heard about you and Carl Nelson and the late Dick Gregory. But I have a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have actually 2 questions and a comment. My first question is about the Democratic Party. If these 2 parties, the Democratic and Republican Party, are on the same branch, why did they let the Virginia governorship go to a Democrat and just not allow the Article 5 convention happen? If these 2 parties are part of the same system, the secret society, NWO, Bohemian Grove, why did they just let that happen and not just go along with the John Birch Society? And my second question is really off topic, but I was reading an article online, and I must know this because he was one of my favorite artists of all time, and his name was Bob Marley. And I was reading an article from a former CIA agent on his deathbed in Maine. I believe his name was Bill Oxley. He said he admitted of killing Bob Marley, and I just want to know if that's true and what's your thoughts on that. And I want to wish you a Happy New Year, and I hope you continue to come on Carl Nelson's show next year also. Thank you, my friend.
All right, thanks for giving me the guilt trip about coming back. All right, Mr. Nelson, I'll try to make this quicker than you get a lot of people. First of all, Democratic Party. Now, what I've said to folks is the Democratic Party, and I'm not the one who said this, by the way. I believe this was Desmond Tutu back in the 90s, who stated the only difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're 2 branches from the same wing. You know, even back in the 1920s, W.E.B. Du Bois says anybody who believes in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to save us are fools. Very little in U.S. politics happens by accident. However, there are some things that they still haven't gotten complete control over, and I hate to use that term they, but I'll just say this. Back in the aftermath of the great 2007-2008 debacle of Wall Street, excuse me, Citigroup had actually put out a memo to its employees. Now, this I say, I try to share this with you, but it'll be hard to find because Citigroup since this time has threatened to sue anybody who shows this email. But Citigroup basically put out an email saying, we may be taking control and power, but they still have something we don't have. The masses of people still have the majority of vote. Until we can get rid of this one man, one vote thing, they still pose a significant threat to our ability to rule. What you saw in Virginia, as well as, by the way, down in Alabama, which is once again why I say thank you, women, and thank you, black women. Because unfortunately, from what I heard, 47% of white women still voted for Roy Moore. When Mr. Nelson had me on his show in the aftermath of Michael Brown's murder, I told the folks, Black Lives Matter is not a threat because of law enforcement deaths. To this day, I still cannot find one single cop who's ever been killed as a direct result of somebody connected to Black Lives Matter, even though House Negroes like David Clark and others tell you otherwise. However, I also told the listeners that Black Lives Matter would become enemy number one during the 2016 elections. Why? In St. Louis County, Missouri, before Michael Brown was murdered, there were very few people on the St. Louis County Council. When Black Lives Matter came into town and rallied black folks to go out and vote, now 50% of St. Louis County, their county council is black. If Black Lives Matter did in St. Louis nationwide, the Republicans would never again see their person in the White House. And that's why Black Lives Matter became enemy number one. What you saw in Virginia was a backlash to individuals who are so far down the road in bed with the neo-Nazis, neo-Confederates, that people said, hell no, we ain't taking this. And you saw the same thing in Alabama. I firmly believe the 2018 midterm elections is going to see a massive shift and change in this country. The one man, one woman vote is going to make the difference because unlike previous midterm elections that the Democrats and progressives ignored, they're going to come out. So I hope, brother, that helps to answer your question. The second question, Bob Marley, I'm a surfer. I coach surfers. Now that I might let my hair grow out, all these white girls around the world love me because they all look at me and go, Bob Marley. I have no personal information on this, but what I was told, CIA killed Bob Marley. Let's move on, Mr. Nelson.
800-450-7876. Let's go to Cleveland. Hassan is joining us. He's on line one. Hassan, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
How you doing, Carl? How you doing, Mark?
Hi, Brother Hassan.
Just want to take you back just a little bit and then kind of follow up what the brother was saying on the last call. Number one, I haven't listened to you. I didn't get a chance to listen last time you was on. I don't know if you addressed the black identity extremism.
The black extremist identity.
Right. And also, like, what I really want to know, like, going back to when they killed Malcolm X, I believe it was his grandson or great-great-grandson down in Mexico. And that leads into my question. Number one, for people who they consider these black identity extremists, or however you want to phrase it, what advice do you have as far as traveling overseas, being safe, so forth and so on? How does all that come together? And I know they could kill, the CIA or the feds, they can kill you at any time. But it's easier, it seems like, for them to get you overseas because they don't have to go through all the, they can kind of get away from the investigations that'll probably happen, inside the States. So can you give us some advice on how to maneuver when you're overseas in different places and how you can avoid these traps where they can actually set you up, and who more so does that, pull those strings? And then going to the gentleman who was on before, the elder, who do you think it is that's running the guns, and who's controlling all that? Because, of course, we know that we're not putting the guns in our own community. So who's running that whole thing? And I'll take my my answer's off the air.
All right, Mr. Nelson, I know we're coming up on a break, but I'll try to make this quick. Brother Hassan in Cleveland, you in Ohio. Oh, my God, that's how they put Trump in the White House, since Mitt Romney's son owns most of the voting machines there. Black extremist identity. Now, you put a guy like, Jeff Beauregard Sessions in. Something else I didn't say when I was talking about St. Louis. FBI Justice Department did a major investigation, and I'll wait till the break. And when the break comes back, I'll answer this question.
Okay, cool. This is our last look at the traffic and weather in the DMV. Boozer, you driving, please drive carefully out there. It's cold out there as well. 800-450-7876 to speak to Mark. Your calls are next right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And the number to call to speak to him, 800-450-7876. And Mark, I know you want to finish responding to Hassan's questions out of Cleveland.
Sure. So, Brother Hassan was asking about the black identity extremists. Now, earlier I stated how Black Lives Matter was going to become enemy number one because they were getting black folks out there to vote. And if Black Lives Matter can succeed this nationwide, what you saw in Virginia recently, what you saw in Alabama recently, will happen nationwide. These old white men, racist, misogynist, want to take this country back to making America great again, which translates into making America white again. They will not win office. The second reason why Black Lives Matter became enemy number one, because of insistence of outspoken Black Lives Matter leaders in St. Louis County, the Justice Department began an investigation. Now, the last time I counted, something like 34 police officers and deputy sheriffs in various police departments who didn't even have anything to do with Michael Brown have either resigned, been fired, or retired in lieu of because of their connections to neo-Nazi groups, because of things they've stated at places like fraternal order police rallies and stuff that were just blatantly racist, xenophobic. Some of it's on videotape. Because Hillary Clinton didn't get elected, all those investigations involving neo-Nazis within law enforcement around the country, and I will tell you this, folks, because you know me, I'm not going to lie to you. Even take Dallas, Texas, where 5 officers were killed. One of those officers was a former L.A. sheriff employee, member of the Vikings, with all kinds of neo-Nazi tattoos on his arms, hands, and fingers. And nobody talks about it. Now, I'm not saying those 5 cops should have been killed. I'm just saying there's a lot more going on in this country than you realize. Neo-Nazis, the Oath Keepers, who was created by the John Birch Society member, they don't respect federal government. They had no love or respect for Barack Hussein Obama. They have infiltrated all your police departments, all your sheriff departments, a lot of federal agencies. With Black Lives Matter going in and causing the Justice Department to create this investigation, and folks, trust me when I tell you this, but look it up for yourself. Just look up FBI, neo-Nazi, and police departments and see what you come up with. But now that Jeff Beauregard Sessions is in there, all those investigations are stopped, and instead, COINTELPRO is back. In other words, let's not talk about the neo-Nazis. Let's not talk about the neo-Confederates. Let's not talk about the number one threat to local cops, which is our white separatists. Let's talk about the black identity extremists. It's all made up. Now, yeah, there's some blacks out there who are crazy, stupid, and dumb. But black identity extremists do not pose the greatest threat to local law enforcement. But that's all you're going to see Jeff Sessions and the Justice Department now focus on when it comes to domestic terrorism. And then you have House Negroes like David Clark who telling you Black Lives Matter should be put on the same list as ISIS. Last thing what the brother was asking about, who's running the guns? The 2 largest distributors of firearms around the world are corporations in the United States, and vastly behind us, number 2, are corporations in Russia. And as I speak, Mr. Nelson, you asked earlier about a world war. Nobody's talking about it. Turkey is starting to ignore the U.S. Turkey is now cutting deals with Syria and Russia. And by the way, Russian corporations have just provided a large number of weapons to Syria. The so-called ISIS has been defeated. Russia, Syria, and Turkey are now having talks, and they're not even including the U.S. in their talks. Meanwhile, the United States Congress, no less, has just approved millions of dollars. We don't have money for poor folks, but we're going to give millions of dollars to the Ukraine. And for you folks who don't know this, we've had special forces in the Ukraine since the Obama years. Ukraine is on the border with Russia. We're headed for World War III. So I hope that helps answer the brother's questions.
And a tweet came in wanting to know about Black Lives Matter and George Soros. Is there a connection between those two?
George Soros. Everybody talks about George Soros. George Soros does not pose a threat to the stability of the United States. George Soros is that character that's thrown out there by the Alex Jones right-wing group and all that, because they don't ever talk about the Mercer family who put Donald Trump in the White House. They don't talk about the Koch brothers. They don't talk about that Betsy DeVos and all these billionaires who are changing the textbooks in colleges and universities because they focus on George Soros. I don't waste much time with George Soros, Mr. Nelson.
All right. 800-450-7876. Mr. Prince is reaching out to us on line 4. He's calling from Columbus, Ohio. Mr. Prince, or Mark from Anaheim.
Mark from Anaheim, man. Living in Alabama and living in Ohio, I think I need therapy, between the two corrupt states, But anyway, I wanted to kind of get your insight on what do you think about the new tax bill? And then also, as you know, I'm from Alabama, and you know that Rural Moore did not concede at all. And now his campaign manager, they're calling for election fraud, voter fraud, saying that the election in Alabama, that the Secretary of State didn't do the right thing. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, Mr. Prince, I wish you luck in your future endeavors. I hope that the John Birch Society who's listening to this show doesn't give you a hard time in your future financial endeavors.
Right.
And as far as the new tax bill goes, I'm not affected. So I speak out for other folks. And basically, within 8 years, what few scraps they provided to people who think, wow, I'm getting some money back, that's going to end. But it's going to continue for the wealthy. When I say, I'm talking people who are making 8 figures or more. So if you're not in that bracket, you're not going to benefit from the tax bracket and the tax benefits in the long run. However, there's hope. Like I said, we're going to have midterm elections coming up in 2018. I firmly believe there's going to be a shift in this country, an angry shift. And I think much of the damage that's been done by the Trump administration will be taken care of between 2018 and 2020. I don't believe Trump will be around by then. Pence might be in for a while and try to do so much, but he can only do so much with the Congress. And even Republicans now are admitting they're not going along with this, because there are a lot of Republicans who don't support the Trump-Pence evangelical movement. They're just afraid of not getting reelected when they go home. But in 2018, things will be different, and by 2020, I'm not saying the Democrats will be back in the White House, because right now I challenge the Democratic Party to name me one person who could beat Trump. That's how sad and pathetic this country is. And I should tell you this. This is not only going on in the U.S. If I was to say, name me one leader in the world right now that I, Mark from Anaheim, has any respect for, the only world leader I have any respect for right now is Merkel in Germany. And if they take her down, they have total control. They've already taken over the UK. That's why the stuff you see going on in this country is because of guys like Rupert Murdoch, the Mercer family, and others. They're the same ones putting up the money behind the scenes that took down Great Britain with Brexit. Now, Brexit's not a done deal, but they're facing a possible civil war in their country just like we are here. This is going around worldwide. And in Europe is really on the verge of collapsing. The European Union is on the verge of collapsing. Not financially, but politically. And these folks, these neo-Nazi, neo-Confederates are around the world. They're not just here in the U.S. We focus on it because we're impacted here in the U.S., but what you see going on in this country is going on elsewhere. And I pray for Merkel every night. Two people I pray for right now, Merkel in Germany and the Pope, because the Pope is not going along with this Knights of Malta, let's have the Crusades, all-out caliphate with the Muslims. And the Pope forced the head of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta to resign, which is the first time this happened since the 1700s. So the two world leaders right now I pray for more than anybody else is Merkel, because if they take her down, we're done. And the Pope, they take him down, we're done. So when you ask this question, which of course is typical of Mr. Prince from Ohio, the new tax bill is going to be devastating for those who are wearing uniforms that are crippled, came home with PTSD, came home with promises of being helped out. They don't talk about the veterans who are going to be screwed by this, but they want to privatize the VA too. And a lot of the children, the wives, the husbands, the dependents of U.S. Armed Forces personnel have already going to be impacted by this new tax bill. They want to destroy Medicaid. They want to destroy Medicare. They want to destroy Social Security. They talk about thank you for your service, but they screw you when you come home. And Roy Moore is not conceding. Roy Moore is doing the same crap when I came on Mr. Nelson's show and told everybody how House Negro Alan West was going to lose because they had the voting machines rigged, but white hats went in and cleaned out all those rigs in Florida. And so the voting machines voted honestly. And sure enough, when they went back and recounted the votes, to the T what I said, the 1-7 vote changed, Alan West lost. And Alan West didn't concede, so they ended up taking all his stuff out of his congressional office and throwing it down the basement. Same thing's going to happen with Roy Moore.
Great, Mr. Prince, I thank you for your call. We've got to take a short break. More questions for Mark at 800-450-7876 next on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim, and the number to call to reach him again is 800-450-7876. Thank you, Mr. Prince. Let's go to the district on line 5. Michelle's waiting for us. Michelle, you're on with Mark from Anaheim. Michelle left us? All right. Let's keep moving then. Let's go to line 6. Howard's calling from Los Angeles. Howard? I'm not hearing Howard either. Let's keep going. Let's go to line 3. John's in Long Island. John? Mark, you still with us? Four 450-7876, number to call. Speak to Mark from Anaheim. We spoke to Mr. Prince. Let's go to line 5. Michelle's calling us from the district. Michelle, you're on with Mark from Anaheim. I'm not hearing Michelle. Okay. So let's go to line 6. Howard's in L.A. Howard?
Yes, I'm here, Carl.
Good.
How you doing, Mark? I met you a couple of times over at King Drew Medical Center with Thompson Harlan up there for that story when she got killed. I just have a couple of quick questions, but, you know, it's kind of funny. I did all my time in Strategic Erica, man. I didn't know anything until I watched the movie Fail Safe, and that's when I understood the mission better. And when all this money was spent on defense, are they still flying the B-52s?
Not only are they flying... Can you hear me, Mr. Nelson?
Sure,
I hear you, Mark.
Okay, because I just called back in because I got disconnected too. Not only are they still flying B-52s, just to let you know how close we're getting to a world war, they have recalled a lot of former B-52 pilots who are no longer on active duty, and they are retrofitting a whole lot of a lot of old B-52s that have been sitting out in the desert.
Yeah, I was in that Cold War trip, and my thing was they call a alert. You know, alert going go off to chow hall and the movie and hear the sirens going off. You just hope and pray they just have what they call a cocoa, where they go up and down the runway, turn around, and come back. But every now and then they took off, and you say, "Oh no, here we go." But
well,
like
now you have to understand. You mentioned the movie Failsafe, so for the listeners out there who don't understand, I have that movie. I strongly recommend it. It's dated. It's old. It was, it was made back in the '60s. I strongly recommend you find a copy of Failsafe and watch it, because that movie is not based on an actual incident, but it's very accurate in regards to how close the former Soviet Union and the United States could have come to nuclear war based on what the computers had perceived on the screen. And to try to convince each other we're not really launching weapons, because the computer is saying you're launching weapons, and the leaders are saying we haven't launched any weapons. So, brother, when you talk about Failsafe, that's a very, very interesting movie. I highly recommend it. And you mentioned Latasha Harlan, so let's let the listeners understand what's going on here. This was the 25th anniversary of the 1992 civil unrest, Los Angeles riots, rebellion, whatever you want to call it. And while a lot of folks think that Rodney King was the catalyst for it, most folks never heard the name Latasha Harlan. Latasha Harlan was a young teenage black girl who walked into a liquor store owned by a Korean, tried to buy a bottle of orange juice, but she put it in her backpack as she came up to the counter to pay for it. This Korean accused her of trying to steal the orange juice, started grabbing on her backpack, and she's like, "Get away from me." They got into a shoving match. Latasha Harlan ends up storming out of the store, and as she's walking out the store, this Korean woman shoots her in the back of the head. Then when LAPD, and by the way, I worked Southeast Division later on, and LAPD Southeast shows up, this Korean woman lies and says that Latasha Harlan tried to rob her. She was defending herself, and when they looked at the videotapes, it was a clear cut of shooting an innocent, unarmed black girl in the back of the head. Later on, when Sung Ja-do, Joyce Collins, by the way, was the judge, Sung Ja-do, when she was convicted, she received probation. On that same day, a white guy had kicked a dog. He got 7 months in jail. So the message was, you get more time in jail for kicking a dog than you do for shooting a black girl in the back of the head. So I just want to share that because, brother, you're throwing this stuff out here, but you have to understand, a lot of folks don't have a clue what we're talking about. So Latasha Harlan, more than anything else, was the reason for the 1992 civil unrest. And when the verdict came back on the 4 LAPD officers involved with Rodney King, that was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, because there had been already many controversial incidents involving unarmed black folks who've been shot and killed in L.A., and they wanted to see what the outcome was going to be of Rodney King. But I'm sorry, brother, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to bring that up because it's like the 25th anniversary, and I'm a watch riot veteran, and I can tell you things about the watch riots that happened. One thing that set the brothers off during the watch riot, talk about was the lady got hit by the highway patrol of police.
Okay, hold on, brother. So, for the listeners out there, now the brother's referring to the watch riots. Don't confuse that with 1992. Now he's talking about 1965, which also started in Southeast LAPD Division. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, and the lady came out to check on her cuts because he was supposed to be next to get his haircut. But he wasn't there. She went out to check on him, and they were, I guess, Marquis Pride, his brothers out to stop by the police down there at 116th and Avalon.
That's correct.
And she was curious, and somehow a scuffle came out. They tried to talk to the officers, and one of the officers hit the lady who was in a barber smock, and the women thought she was pregnant, and that set things off there too. That people don't talk about that. And I had the opportunity to see the documentary over at WCAC about 2 years ago, and they came out, and she was there, and she talked about it. But those things black women did definitely have something to do with two major riots.
Well, let me tell you this, brother, because Carl Nelson will be my witness. And this is very important, and it goes back to the black identity extremists. 1, folks, get yourself a passport. Get yourself a passport. 2, I began doing radio shows with Carl Nelson in 1992 because I kept hearing people come on KGLH, Stevie Wonder station out here in L.A., saying things on the radio that could get them arrested. And I'm like, are they like idiots? Ignorant? What the hell? So I started coming on Carl's show saying, folks, stop putting your business over the radio and stop saying things that can get you legally arrested. Now, I say this because right now we have this so-called targeted black identity extremism. And I'm seeing a lot of folks on the internet saying things that are stupid. that are just going to make them target for Jeff Beauregard Sessions and others. And so, brother, let me just tell you what I said the first time I came on Carl's show. It was an open forum Friday, and this is what I said. You know, you folks come on this radio show and you talk a lot of crap. You put your business out there, giving the cops reason to arrest you. So let me just tell you three things about 1965 and 1992. In 1965, the Watts riots were started by a California Highway Patrol stop of a possible drunk driver. 1992, the LA riots were started by a pursuit that was initiated by the California Highway Patrol following a possible drunk driver. 1965, on the first night of the riots, William H. Parker and LAPD was slow to respond because he was at a fundraiser. 1992, Daryl Gates and LAPD were slow to respond because Daryl Gates was at a political fundraiser. 1965, at the end of the Watts riots, former CIA Director John McCone investigated LAPD after the riots. 1992, former CIA and former FBI Director William Webster investigated LAPD after the riots. The plan worked so well in 65, they did it again in 1992, and you Negroes come on this radio station talking your crap and don't even realize you've been had again. That's how I began with Carl Nelson, brother.
Oh, your call. Right, let's keep moving. Howard, thank you for your call because we've got a bunch of folks who want to speak to Mark, but I thank you for your call. 800-450-7876. Let's go to Gloria. Gloria's calling us from the districts. She's on line 3. Gloria, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
All right, good afternoon. I'm just going to try to make this short and quick. I like the way Mark is really making everything clear, but I wanted to ask him, I want to stay down the food chain, because my first question was a higher up, I wanted to ask him about who is funding Deep State, and then I thought about how he talks about John Birch Society, and I wanted to ask him who's the Jesuit, but I want to bring this, but I changed my mind. I want to bring my question down a little bit. Have you heard that the United Nations is requested by the commissioner in Chicago to patrol the streets?
I already know what you're going to ask, sister.
A little premise.
I'm sorry.
You know, we have these neighborhoods where our people like to stand around those that some work, some just get checks from somewhere. They'll tell you.
Right,
but
Gloria, we got the gist of your question, but we got to take a break. So I'm going to let Mark respond to your question on the other side.
Okay, I'll listen off
800-450-7876 gets you in to speak to Mark from Anaheim. Taking calls after this short break right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim, and the number to call to reach him is 800-450-7876. So, Mark, I'm going to let you respond to Gloria's question.
I knew you would. Okay, let's start with Chicago. 1, Mr. Nelson, where's Barack Hussein Obama? Where does he call home?
Chicago.
Oh, where's the Council on Foreign Relations in the United States headquartered?
Chicago.
So, the Koch brothers fund a lot of right-wing groups. Who did the Koch brothers help get elected as a U.S. Senator out of Chicago?
Barack Obama.
So, Fox News hates Barack Obama, right, Mr. Nelson?
So they say.
And the two biggest owners of Fox News is Murdoch and a Saudi Wahhabist Muslim who not only funds terrorists around the world, but put up most of the money to build the mosque at Ground Zero at the World Trade Center. Fox News is owned by News Corp. Who did News Corp give more money to than anybody else running for president in 2012?
Barack.
So, folks, pay attention to what I'm telling you, okay? It's a game they play. Now, President Obama came out 2 weeks ago, and he spoke at a very interesting organization in Chicago. I came on Mr. Nelson's show back in 2012 after Barack Hussein. Well, actually, no, I came on Mr. Nelson's show in April of 2012, and I stated that Barack Hussein Obama was going to be reelected because he's doing exactly what Wall Street wants. However, if not by 2016, by 2020, you would have a dictator in the White House. Just Google Donald Trump dictator and see how many world leaders, former CIA directors, State Department officials, and elected officials all over the U.S. now who actually call Donald Trump a dictator. However, I said that in conjunction to the fact that Barack Hussein Obama was doing exactly what the New World Order wanted him to do. He's the one who passed most of these executive orders that now gives Trump dictatorial powers, okay? When you look back at what the sister is asking, there's a thing in Chicago called black sites. I don't watch television, but for some reason I was compelled to go out and buy the series Scandal. Then I had to start watching and binge watching. The very first season of Scandal is one of the few TV shows / movies I've ever seen that shows you black sites in Chicago. And Donald Trump ran. All he did was paint Chicago as the #1 growing menace in the world. I'm not in Chicago. I haven't been in Chicago in years. But I've heard from several sources that when Donald Trump asked to send in the National Guard into Chicago, the mayor, and you can see how far right-wing he is, even though he's one of Barack Hussein Obama's buddies, he said no to the National Guard. But I've been told by several different sources, I wasn't there, I'm just sharing the information, that UN personnel are already there, and when the Trump-Pence administration privatizes a little bit more what's going on, you may see private mercenaries, contractors as they call themselves, under the auspices of the United Nations patrolling the streets of Chicago. And I think that's what the sister is alluding to. Let's move on, sir.
All right, let's go to Chicago. 800-450-7876. Ken is joining us. He's on line 1 from the Windy City. Ken, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Thank you, Carl. You know, the question I originally had, Mark, is I had hoped that he could get into this Articles of Confederation and explain.
Yes, sir. Article 5, Confederation.
Okay, could you just expound a great deal more on that? Because
absolutely.
Last I heard you speak, you said something about that's what they're going to next come up with to legitimize.
Yeah. What happened was this, okay, with Article 5 Confederation, which is not a constitutional amendment, don't confuse the two. You have folks like Mark Levin and others, John Birch Society, far right wing. They hate the federal government. They want to destroy the federal government. Folks, I am not being hyperbolic when I tell you this. Now, under Article 5 Confederation, if they get enough states with a Republican-leaning governor and or legislation, they can vote for a referendum on a constitutional, what they call constitutional, how do they say? It's like a constitutional referendum, but it's a controversy that will create a situation where they can bring up Article 5 Confederation. If enough states ratify an Article 5 Confederation, the U.S. federal government will no longer have power or authority. It goes back to the states. It's legal, and it's on the books, and they've come very close. With the vote in Chicago, with the votes in Virginia, it kind of put it on a state. And I think...
It sounds like states' rights, though.
That's exactly what it is. That's what the Civil War was all about. So now here you are out here in California. You got these predominantly white, so-called progressives screaming that they want their right to smoke dope. Does the federal government recognize marijuana laws?
I don't think they do.
Exactly. So, if California insists on practicing their California state's rights for drugs, the federal government can go now against California. So what I'm telling you, folks, the marijuana law in California is no damn different than slavery in southern states, where the federal government says you can't have slaves, well, you can't have marijuana. And you folks are so stupid out there. I don't give a damn if you're black, white, whoever. Whether you call yourself so-called progressives or Tea Party libertarians, the marijuana law is going to be used to help create this Article 5 Confederation constitutional referendum, which will destroy the federal government, which will give all rights back to the states, which means, let me remind you folks, the only reason blacks are in the U.S. Armed Forces is because of an executive order. There ain't no federal law in the book that says you have the right to be. In fact, there ain't no federal law that says you have the right to vote. Those are all laws that were passed in post so-called founding fathers. With no federal government, you go back to states' rights. Just look at Missouri right now. They're already practicing laws where you can't file a civil lawsuit for sexual harassment or discrimination in the workplace. It's already happening. They're taking away your rights that came under the auspices of the federal government. So, brother, when you ask this question about Article 5 Confederation, that voting in Virginia kind of put a stay on it. And that's why I say, folks, you got to get out there and vote in 2018. Because unless you continue to vote in 2018 and come up with the same results as in Virginia, they will destroy the federal government legally. Blacks, poor whites, browns, Asians, Native Americans, women will no longer be protected because there will be no federal government. And I am not being hyperbolic.
All right, let's keep moving. Ken, I thank you for your call.
Thank you.
800-450-7876. Let's see if Michelle is still there, because I see her name on
Michelle.
Michelle, are you on
Hi.
the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Carl. Hi, Mark, Anaheim.
Michelle, why don't you just marry me?
Yeah, huh?
Why don't you just marry me? I hear you. Why don't you just marry me?
How nice of you to ask. Well, I want to ask you, I've talked about this on the show before, and I can't really seem to get any answers. I'm here in D.C., and we've got helicopters going around us as though they're on patrol.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I know it's not, I know that it's not the D.C. government. We had helicopters going around us on Christmas Day.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
That's how I know it's not the D.C. government. And I can't get any answers. I've already reached out to city
what's
council.
your question, ma'am?
I want to know what's going on. What is the
Okay,
reason
let me
for
tell you
this?
what's going on. Oh, man. Okay, Michelle's going to get me in trouble. Okay. Donald Trump, as well as his wife, are assets of the Russian government. And whether they know it or not, I'll just put it that way, whether they know it or not, they're assets of the Russian government. And one of the reasons why they stayed at Trump Towers instead of the White House, they don't come under the auspices of protection of the Secret Service, who will also see what they're doing. Donald Trump has replaced pretty much most of the Secret Service with private contractors, so they don't have to be watched by the Secret Service. Many of the helicopters you see flying in D.C. now are helicopters that work for Donald Trump and his privatized protective service. And this is why I tried to warn people. When you saw this TV show 24, that show was trying to brainwash the United States citizens. We don't need the federal government. Let's bring in our private contractors who can get the information out the enemy because they don't have to follow government rules. So they brought these shows on early. Donald Sutherland, his son, Kiefer Sutherland, he was not a federal agent. Edwin Snowden is not NSA or CIA. He's a private contractor. That's what they've been programming and brainwashing you to believe, that the private corporations can do better than the federal government. Many of those helicopters you see now flying in D.C. are privatized but have the auspices of the authority from the White House. So, folks, you know me, I always recommend books and movies. If you want an idea of what I'm talking about, and if you want to see the damage that's been done to this country because Trump's been elected, and the damage that could be done in the future by what the sister's alluding to, see the movie Island with Scarlett Johansson. And it shows you how LAPD cops are shot up and killed because they're trying to do their job. But a brother, in fact, it's the same brother from Amistad, he leads a private corporation offering services because the Defense Department can't be called in. And he will kill LAPD cops and anybody else who gets in his way to do the job for his client, who needs him to take care of some business. I am not being hyperbolic when I tell you, by privatizing U.S. government agencies, they don't come under the auspices, and they don't have loyalty to you as a citizen. They only have loyalty to the person who's paying them. So, sister, many of those helicopters that you're seeing in D.C. now are helicopters flying there because of the Trump administration who, rather than use Secret Service and other federal agencies that exist, they're using private contractors.
Wow, it's that deep.
It's that deep.
Right. Michelle, we're going to run because we got like 2 minutes, and John's been holding for a while from calling us from Long Island on line 6. John, can you make it quick for us?
Hi, Carl. Thank you for taking my call. Hi, Mark. How's everything?
I'm still obnoxious.
All right, I'll make it real quick.
Hey, John, how far are you from Massapequa? John, how far are you from Massapequa?
Right in it.
Yeah, well, you know, I used to have a mad crush on a Marine Corps officer from there, but go ahead, brother.
Okay. Is there still a war going on within the intelligence community?
Absolutely. In fact, as I just said earlier, because of all this privatization, many of the folks who were either Republicans are now fighting this war. Mr. Nelson, do we have any time before this break, or are we done?
No, this is a break. We're done. So tell folks how they can reach you.
John, I'm sorry. You have to get in touch with me. Find me at Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101 on Facebook.
We're out of here. And guys, just got a call earlier when Mark's on. We'll get him on back again for you. But we got to move on. And you know what? Stay strong. Stay positive. See you tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power.